Mr. Clerk, we are reporting out of closed session. We have one item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, one item to report out of closed session, and the motion is just to receive the report.
Someone like to move that? Councillor Gallo, seconded by Councillor Gilliland. Any comments? Seeing none, call the vote. Recorded vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Recorded vote has been requested for the only item of council reporting out of closed session. Councillor Gartner is absent. Mayor Maracus, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Kim?
Yes.
Councillor Kim votes yes. Councillor Gallo? Councillor Gallo votes yes. Councillor Humphreys?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson is absent, and Councillor Gilliland. Councillor Gilliland votes yes. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Confirming by law. Someone like to move that? Councillor Gallo, thank you. Councillor Kim, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Motion to adjourn. Mr. Gilliland, Councillor Kim, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Mr. Clerk, time is 6:06. I'm going to call this special meeting of council to order. We'd like to start by acknowledging that the land on which we live and work is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples whose presence here continues to this day. Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Williams Treaties First Nations. We acknowledge and thank them for sharing this land with us. Shared understanding of how the rich cultural heritage that has existed for centuries and of how our collective past brought us to where we are today will help us walk together into a better future. Council, can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Councillor Kim, Councillor Gallo, any comments or questions on the agenda? Seeing none, call the vote. E-scribe, please.
I don't have eScribe here, Mr. Mayor.
I'll Councillor Humphreys, I'll call you when I get it.
Okay.
Just popping up now. Councillor Humphreys,
Yes.
thank you. Oh, Councillor Gallo, did it work? That carries. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. No delegations. We have one item, 6.1, Aurora Economic Development Corporation Annual Report. We have a presentation to be provided by Tim Hamill, Chair, Board of Directors, Aurora Economic Development Corporation. Mr. Hamill, welcome.
Thank you.
Floor is yours.
Thanks very much. I'm going to summarize for you my report, which I think you've seen a full copy of, and we've got a bit of a PowerPoint for you, which will help you kind of understand what we've been doing for the last 3 years, but particularly the last year. Just to give you a little bit of a timeline, and I don't know if someone's operating these or. Yeah, if we can just go to the next, please. And one more, and then we're there. This gives you a bit of a timeline of what's happened since the board was first created. We became a board in 2019. And at that point, we started developing the strat plan, which was approved by council in 2019, about mid-year. And from that, the board prioritized actions. And maybe the next slide, please. And through that, we moved to implement the action items. Along came COVID in March of 2020, and that really changed our focus. We became involved with the Business Continuity Task Force, who was dealing with the more emergent issues coming out of COVID. Later in 2020, we turned our attention to developing subcommittees, and the subcommittees were specializing in our high priority items. That was developing what our target sectors should be for attraction, the downtown business mix, and the C-suite action items. And as you might recall, the demographic study, which we based our strat plan on, showed quite clearly what you already know as council, that we have a higher than usual mix of senior decision makers, well-educated, well-remunerated, that live in Aurora. At that point, the vast majority of them commuted outside the city, outside the town. So our objective of the committee was to determine what we could do to engage with those C-suite occupants, those decision makers, to encourage them to at least look at Aurora for future operations or sub-operations or startups. The 2020 saw those subcommittees being fully engaged. That ended up in reports and marketing plans coming out of all three subcommittees, which I believe the council has seen versions of that. Next slide, please. Let me start with a target sector study. This subcommittee determined from the demographic studies and the information available to it, which would be the most productive groups to concentrate on for attraction and development in our community. And through this, we determined that there were three areas that we would like to particularly specialize in. If we could have the next slide, please. Firstly, fintech and financial services, life, and really technology underpinning those operations. Life sciences and healthcare, again, and in particular, the technology and innovation areas underpinning those, and the food and beverage manufacturing industry, which Aurora already had definitely a component of, and it's kind of a core group to lever off. These groups of specialized interest are really in addition to our general interest in the manufacturing sector, which is well developed in Aurora from Magna on down to smaller operations. From that, once we identified those sectors and reported that out, we then determined that focus groups would make sense for each of those three areas, and we set those in motion and got a lot of good feedback from the people that are actually in the industry, and that's been a key interest in our group, to develop ties to people that are active in the industries, particularly that are active in Aurora. The pandemic has complicated our ability to develop the one-on-one relationships that we had hoped to do earlier on, but we have kind of fought through the challenges there, and I think developed some very strong relationships. Out of that, and if I could have the next slide, please. Out of those groups came some common learnings and common interests, because again, technology and its development underlies a lot of those three target areas. And of course, manufacturing industry in general. Clearly, there was a felt need for high-speed internet, well-connected infrastructure. This would not be a surprise to anyone on council. And I think the point of interest here would be to ensure that anything we're doing from an infrastructure standpoint, particularly in the employment lands, should incorporate the needs of developing technological businesses. There was a felt need for testing environments, infrastructure for sharing data, and access to expertise to develop technology and startups. So there was a felt need that the companies that are already here would like to be able to have some interface with each other to lever off each other's technologies, and therefore accelerate their own development. This is a little more advanced than the incubator stage, which I'll talk about in a moment. Obviously, there is an interest in developing relationships with post-secondary institutions, and the town has already started to do that through York University and through Seneca and Niagara College, which of course is a sponsor of the Armory. And these relationships, again, tough to do during the pandemic, but I think are really starting to show some promise. This is a very attractive thing to both participants who are already in Aurora and people that may be attracted to Aurora. Workforce development and the needs of development, attracting, training, retaining talent are top of the mind with everyone. And that probably has only increased with the coming out of the pandemic. The need for training programs, particularly in the tech area, was something that was repeated often in these focus groups, and is going to be a focus of the town going forward. I guess lastly, a lot of discussion of the need for incubator, which incubators tend to be startup or early phase companies that are trying to take the next step. Incubators do exist in York region, and there's an effort through the chamber to look at this. Our board will be looking at it, and our newest board members, I think, can add real value here. Not only Keith Liu, who is embedded in this industry, but Nancy Brendar, who actually ran a technological-based section for Magna. I'll have the next slide, please. So the downtown, shifting gears a bit, our downtown committee was really focused, or has been focused, around the type of business mix that would be opportune for our community. Now, the COVID and the pandemic obviously short-circuited what could be thought of as possible here. It created a lot of vacancy. It created trauma with a lot of our smaller businesses, particularly on the retail side. And again, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. We were poking around as a committee, trying to figure out what we could do in this interim period. And we spoke with owners. There was a downtown vision group presentation, which featured the mayor, an update for those owners. We have done a lot of surveying and analysis on exactly what the business mix is. There was very little information on who the actual owners were of properties, as they change and often are owned by a number of companies. We also got right down to the nitty-gritty, suggested things like parking spaces being marked on Yonge Street. And this in itself made it a little more comfortable for people to feel that they could park during high volume hours on Yonge safely. We also sponsored the Window Art Project, which I think really gave people at a very difficult time in our community a little bit of sense of there's something going on in the downtown. And this is when I think the vacancies were at their highest. Our analysis is showing that vacancy rate is substantially down. And the question going forward will still be the opportune business mix of the community and of the historic downtown area in particular. That business mix essentially is governed by the owners of the buildings themselves. But we think that with the proper research and information to the owners, we could at least guide them to the higher use, higher demand type of businesses that will attract more and more people to that downtown. Can I have the next slide, please? This is just pointing out the artwork. I know Wendy Councillor Gardner was heavily involved in this and the communication on it. That is not my hand doing the artwork. I was told to stay completely away from it, which was a good thing. But I do think that the artwork was a bit of a boost to the community when it needed it. I thank Wendy for her help in pushing that forward. Could I have the next slide, please? This talks to the downtown vision presentation by the mayor in March of 2021. It was an opportunity to share information, get some input, but it was really a first introduction to those owners of ourselves as a board. We had talked fairly extensively to the more major owner of properties in that area, but it was an opportunity to speak to some of the other owners. Again, the pandemic has restricted our ability and the kind of the natural process of developing more one-on-one connections. I think we'll see that those relationships developed much more strongly now as as the pandemic lifts and the owners gain more confidence in the board and our support for what they may want to do. Also, that we can provide those owners with the type of up-to-date information they need to make good decisions, both in terms of tenanting and in terms of the future development. Next slide, please. Our surveys were fairly extensive, as you can get an indication there. We ended up with a lot of insights into where the business mix was, what the overall business strategy of the existing tenants were. And as I said, we were able to update fairly significantly the information on who the exact owners were, so that it's now possible for us to connect with the decision makers by name as opposed to a number company. The future engagement, I think, is going to be critical here, and the business community, particularly in the business owners in the downtown community, developing their confidence in the board and our ability to help them meet their goals is going to be pretty important, and we're going to be spending a lot of time on that. We hope to, as the next step, to be able to identify for those owners, not just who's there, not just who else is there today, but what type of businesses might benefit from exposure in particularly the historic area. What are the high volume businesses today that they may be interested in trying to attract when space is available? And there isn't a lot of space available at this point. Could I have the next slide, please? So clearly identifying visitor parking and the overall parking study is going to be important. The continued encouragement of people to use the downtown, both the added green space we have now and the community events down there is going to be really important to develop people's confidence in the viability of the particularly, again, the historic downtown. The interest in streetscape is there for sure. We've had an opportunity to be briefed on the streetscape, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. And the opportunity to incorporate accessibility assets and restrictions within the community, I think, are going to be important. Have the next slide. And I'd like to say we put together the party for downtown because it was a good one, but we clearly encouraged that. The BIA was heavily involved, and on that point, the board has been able to develop a reasonably good relationship with both the BIA and the chamber. And the executive director of the chamber is not a member of the board, but she joins almost all of our board meetings in order to have two-way communication between that group and our own. And again, it's really critically important that when there's business initiatives here, that everybody's aligned. The the culmination of all these things for the downtown was the production of the video. I call it the Clower Talk, Clock Tower video, and the council has seen that. Again, I would like to thank Lisa for her help in pushing that forward. Many of these marketing items have been done at very, very reasonable prices by local participants, and I thank Lisa for that. We certainly don't have the budget for that. So, but I have the next slide, please. Our final subcommittee is the C-suite committee, and I talked a little bit about the challenges there. Developing relationships with decision makers that live in the community. Their kids go to school in the committee. The kids play sports in the committee, in the community. They hopefully recreate in the community, but don't work here. That's very challenging, or was very challenging given the pandemic environment. But we were able to make some real inroads, and with the help of Lisa and the marketing group and the committee itself, we produced the See You in Aurora video, which I believe, again, council has seen. And it's a first step, which is being added to the emerged Aurora marketing plan to indicate just how significant both the individuals are in a corporate sense that work and in case of Magna live in this town, but also used as an attraction vehicle to the ones that live here but don't work here, but just might twig them to think about the opportunities. And that's particularly the case coming out of COVID, because I think every business I am aware of is rethinking how they deliver and how they're going to deliver going forward with staffing issues, and the technology has been developed over the course of COVID, and not only how but where they deliver that their processes, which could lead to more divisionalization of the large offices downtown. And to the extent it does, we want to be positioned to try to be top of the list for consideration. Could I have the next slide, please? The next two slides are indicators of the diversity and type of individuals we were able to attract to do this video. And the next slide as well gives you pictures of those individuals. The gentleman in the middle is Keith Liu, who we have proposed as one of the new directors for the board, and as an example of the active participants that we are really trying to recruit in this community to not only drive good decisions, but be actively working in the community and understand the implications of those decisions. Next slide, please. So the campaign has run in National Post and is it's going to build on the ongoing campaigns for 2022 in the marketing area and in economic development. And I think you recognize the smiling guy there. Next slide, please. So this is my opportunity to thank council and really express a few thoughts. We have been very strong at two-way communication to council, and that's been an issue that's developed over time and how to do that effectively. As a result, council has shared with us all of the major plans of the town going forward, both the finished plans and the projects, and not physical projects, but things like the official plan, the sports tourism, everything that's going to impact this community. And I'll tell you for sure, it's given our board an even greater appreciation of exactly what you as council members have got to absorb in terms of information, and to coordinate that into a coherent policy. And I as I say, we have even more respect for the role that you as a group fulfill. As I said, we're very, very proud of the two candidates that will be joining the board. They're active in the community. They're active in the corporations. They're decision makers. They will be with the board, hopefully, for a long time, and will be individuals, I think, that will be change agents for the community. So we're very excited. They're going to add some additional energy, maybe a little less gray hair. I don't know if you're allowed to say that, but I can say that. So I would like to thank you personally and on behalf of the board for the council's and the mayor's support in helping us along from a board that was simply created 3 years ago through pandemic, allowing us to bump along with decisions, hopefully give you some good advice, and find our way to the point now where I think that we are starting to deliver actual results for the community. And we're very excited about the next phase, because I think with the waning of the pandemic, we're going to be able to move into more of an implementation phase, particularly with our target markets and those one-on-one relationships I keep harping on that are so critical to our success. Let me thank in particular the mayor and Councillor Wendy and Gartner and Mike Thompson and Harold Kim for your efforts as board members. Some people may have just treated this in your shoes as well as another meeting you got to go to, but you've all jumped in and added real value and given us really good advice. I hope we've returned a little bit of it, but it's been very, very, very much appreciated. This is my last report to you as chair of the board. My term is up. I will be in May moving to the past chair, and we'll have a new chair, new members, hopefully, and renewed energy on getting things done. Mr. Mayor, that's our report to council.
Thank you, Tim. I really appreciate it. Council, just before I ask for any comments or questions, I am going to ask for a mover and a seconder on the recommendation, so I'm just going to read it out. The recommendation is 1, that report number PDS 2022-22-063 be received. 2, that the Aurora Economic Development Corporation's Director's Report attached hereto as attachment 1 be received. 3, that the requirements regarding the appointment and duties of the auditor be exempted for the financial year. 4, that council approve a special motion passed by the Aurora Economic Development Corporation Board of Directors to increase the number of local residents or business owners Board of Director members to 10. 5, that council appoint the following 4 individuals to the Aurora Economic Development Corporation Board of Directors for a term of 3 years: Richard Gong, Marilee Harris, May Kamisa, Craig Udell. 6, that council appoint the following 1 individual to the Aurora Economic Development Corporation Board of Directors for a term of 4 years: Keith Liu. 7, that council appoint the following 1 individual to the Aurora Economic Development Corporation Board of Directors for a term of 2 years: Nancy Brindar. Someone like to move that? Councillor Gilliland, second. Councillor Kim. Thank you. Any comments or questions to Mr. Hamill or to the report? Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. Through Mr. Mayor, to, I guess it could be Tim or the CAO. I see that the recommendation has changed, more staggered. That was kind of one of my original concerns, that I think that we had started this Economic Development Board in a rotation to ensure that we didn't lose the board all at the same time. So I do see that it has been staggered. I guess just out of curiosity then, because there are 4 members that aren't being accounted for, do we know what the balance is of the remaining members, or what their rotation is, just to ensure that, you know, we do have a consistent rotation that's going to reflect you know, an even scale, so we don't have, you know, 60% of the board all of a sudden changing over at once. Right now, it looks like 40% is 3 years. The 4-year, I'm assuming, is put in there to allow a rotation, because I believe the max is 3, but perhaps maybe there's some sort of explanation that, or comfort that I can get on that rotation.
CO?
Through Mr. Mayor, thank you. So the original, we did look into this, and the original board, if you recall, was constituted with 7 members. And the rotation that was set up then was 2 of those members had 2-year terms, 4 of them had 3-year terms, and 1 of them had a 4-year term for those 7. Subsequently, 2 more positions were added to the board, and I don't have those terms. They would have been 3-year terms, and they would have been added in this, I believe, the 2nd year, but I'd have to look that up. And then we're adding a 10th. If council accepts this recommendation, you're adding a 10th position now. So the appointments tonight, we did change the original motion just to make sure that there is some spreading of it. It's not perfect. It's 10, so you're never going to get a third. But the motion now, as it reads, takes those 4 individuals who originally had a 3-year term, and it renews them for their 2nd term. And then I've suggested, and it's been tabled, that we break up the other 2. One would be, in essence, fulfilling the rest of the term of the person that resigned, and the other person would get a full term. So we just make it a 4 and 2, so we don't have too many people, which was the original concern, renewing all on 3 years. So that's how we came with the recommendation today.
Councillor?
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I got the gist of what was on the floor, but as far as the remaining 4 people, I mean, Tim has obviously stated that his term's coming to an end. Does that mean that the next rollover will be a 1-year or 2-year term? Has that been defined? I believe Steve Hinder, Ty Pam, and Vern Cunningham is also on the board as well. So are they all going to be renewed at the same time? I just want to make sure that, you know, we're not, again, changing 6 of 10 people all at the same time. I don't know what's remaining on their term.
Just
Tim?
to
Yeah, go ahead.
clarify,
Go ahead, Tim.
yeah, just to clarify, I think Steve and I, we were originally on a 2-year term on the stagger. We were renewed last year for a 3-year term in order to, again, keep the staggering in place. TIFAM was elected last year and with a 3-year term, so that stagger would continue as well. I think that the staggering will work the way it's set up. To the CAO's point, we can't quite divide it by a third, but I think it should be sufficient to give council comfort that you're not going to lose, say, half your board in 1 year.
And Councillor, just so it's not, Tim is just stepping down as chair. He's not leaving the board. He's still got 2 years left in his term.
Right.
Okay, thank you. So essentially up to, I guess, the new term of council that gets elected, there'll be no vacant seats at the beginning of the term. And a vacant seat won't come up until at least 2 years in. Is that correct?
Mr. Tim, or maybe Mr. CEO, is there anyone coming up next year?
Through Mr. Chair, I'll confirm the actual rotation, but because we started off with 2-year, 3-year, and 4-year terms, after the second year, every year there'd be somebody coming up for renewal. So, or one or more persons coming up for renewal. So there will be at least one person or two. I'm not sure again how those other two got added in the midterm because we just didn't have the time to look it up. But there should basically be some rotation every year, and I'll confirm exactly how many next year and the following year after the meeting.
Councillor?
I believe
Tim?
that there's one coming up
Go ahead.
next year.
No. Okay, Councillor?
Thank you. And, I think, getting our feet on the ground and up and running with the new Economic Development Board, I can see how, renewals we wanted to have happen just for continuity because this is something new that we tried to move forward, which has proven to be pretty successful. I would just hope that, moving forward, we do stick to the rotation and try and get some fresh faces in there. Otherwise, it's going to be really tough to, get a council and a working council in collaboration with the Economic Development Board and have a consistent refreshing, so to speak, with a few people here and there. So hopefully that can get all sorted out as best as we can. I know we're all on the same page and want to see this successful. So I just want to get that clear. So thank you very much. The other question I had was about the appointment of the auditor and to be exempted for the financial year. And I did read the report and I understand why. I guess my question through you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. CAO, or Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel, she's around. Will council be receiving a separate report, a council report, just based on any funding that might be provided by the council to that's utilized for any of the events that are, within the Economic Development Board, just so we can see, what that breakdown is.
Yeah.
To Mr. Chair, the Economic Development Board itself has no funds, and it only gets funds as council approves them for the stated use that they ask for them. So all of their financials flow through the annual financials of the corporation, of the town.
Councillor?
Thank you. I get that. I understand that. It was just really for council's own kind of report to kind of see kind of like these are the things we approved within it and just for us to kind of see how much we've invested in it and the, just the cost benefit of everything. Obviously, everything's been great now, but what you're saying is as council members, we need to look back on the budget and look at the individual things that we approved. What I'm asking is, could council get just a report from the town in general, just all the things that we've been able to achieve within a fiscal year, specifically for the Aurora Economic Development Board? Maybe we're not providing enough. Maybe we need to, put it in different areas of it. I don't know, but I don't have that overarching view or picture of where it's going.
CEO?
Mr. Mayor, certainly we can do some sort of a summary report at the year end showing the economic development activities and the investments made by the town in those activities. Sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Hamill, Tim, my sincere thanks to you and the board members. You've spent a lot of work, hours, to make this successful, especially starting something from the very beginning. It's difficult, and then you had COVID. It's an excellent example of how valuable volunteers are to our committees and boards. Now, I do always like to be thanked, but I must say that my part in this has been tiny, and I'm not a board member yet, but hopefully I will be in the next term. So once again, thank you for all of your work.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you to you, Mr. Mayor. And I just wanted to say, Tim, and to the entire board, incredible work. You built it up to somewhere that I believe has exceeded expectations from my perspective. The work that you've done, the groundwork, sort of the foundation being built, and for other members to continue to join in and just keep building from there, I think is extremely significant. I'm very proud of the Economic Development Board, and that includes staff that's part of that as well. I think we had some great additions with Lisa, and I think it just shows just how powerful the board can be. And I truly appreciate the consistency. I'm glad to hear you're staying on, because I was getting worried there. You're not chairing, but you're going to stay on, right? Just want to clarify that. Good. So no, I love the consistency. I believe, as much as I love new faces, absolutely. I think at the Economic Development Board, it's so key to understanding the businesses, building those relationships, understanding the needs of the businesses, and that doesn't happen with a quick rotation. It's time and it's longevity to get to where we need to go. So I just want to thank you very much, and to everyone, and looking forward to the next few years and all the great work ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. And as far as the terms, I just quickly looked at all the reports, and it looks like Mr. Cunningham had the original 4-year term. So I think his is up in 2023, and then the rest after that. There's another 2 in the next year. And I'm happy that there's that continuity. No real question, just I think there's a word missing on page 3 of 5 regarding the financial statements. It says, however, the town finance department and the town's auditor have confirmed that an audit and financial statements will be required based on, I think it should be, will not be required. Because we won't be requiring financial statements, unless I'm misreading that.
I think, Councillor, are you talking about, so I'm just going to read what I'm saying. As long as the AEDC continues to not control any financials, it will not require an annual audit. That's what I'm reading. Am I reading in the same section that you're reading? Oh,
it's above.
Ms. Mayor, I think Kessel, we'll get an explanation now.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So as long as they don't have their own separate financials and everything is going through the town, they would be covered through our own audit that we do as a town.
I'm clear that they don't need it. I'm just saying that this is saying that they do need it.
Oh, so Councillor, I think okay, I see the sentence above that.
Yeah.
So I think what they're saying is that they would need it if they have financial, I guess, requirements. But and then if you read the next sentence after, it says, but because they don't have any financials, they are not required an audit. So you got to go with that one sentence more. Get it? Or am I reading it wrong?
It says it will be, that the financial statement will be required based on the AEDC's present financial situation, as the AEDC does not control any financials. It should say will not, and previous reports say it will not. Not is missing. This is saying that they do require financial statements when in fact they don't.
I think it shouldn't say present. I think what it's trying, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Mayor, because I think what it's trying to say there is that they would be required to, but because that they don't have any financials, then therefore they're exempted from the audit.
I think you just have to word insert
Yeah.
not between will be, will
Sure.
not be required
Sure.
based on the AEDC's present financial situation.
Mr. Mayor,
As the AED does not control any financials.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, you're correct. Councillor Gallo, they do not require an audit because they do not have separate financials. So there's nothing essentially to be audited. So,
but I think the council's just saying that the wording in that paragraph might not be correct. So we might need to
yeah,
change.
that
it.
appears so.
Okay. All right.
As long as
get
we
that
can
changed.
fix that just for the.
Yeah,
for
we'll
the
get it
record.
fixed. Yeah.
That was it. Other than that, thanks for all the work that you do.
Thank you. Councilor Kemp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to congratulate Tim on doing a fabulous job chairing the Economic Development Board. I want to thank him and the full slate of board members. Serving there for 2 years, along with Tim and the other board members, I was very, impressed and encouraged by all the talented individuals there. From the target sector analysis to the downtown development team to the C-suite subcommittee. You guys were all very professional and creative, imaginative, and the last couple of years a lot of things got done, and so I want to thank you guys, and especially during the first of my 2 years during COVID when it initially hit. We really responded, and I was just really proud of the whole group, and I was very proud to be involved in such a special group, and I look forward to working with you guys in the future. So thanks very much, Tim and the board.
Thank you, Councilor Kemp. Councilor Gardner, do you have your hand up for a second time? You're on mute.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I do. Last week I forgot to thank Ms. House, and I would like to thank her. Thank you. I see Tim nodding his head. She has been a wonderful addition to our staff, and often we don't remember to thank them for the work that they do in the course of their, job description. But I believe she has just done an exceptional job here as well. Just a great team, Tim. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other comments or questions? Before I call the vote, Tim, obviously, I think on behalf of council, you've heard each of them. Thank you for the work that you've done. But you have been a tremendous chair, and from the beginning, you've done some tremendous work to bring us to where we are today. And so I'd like to thank you for all the hard work that you've done. It's not easy chairing those meetings, and especially virtual. You did such a great job, and you were the chair as we were going through probably one of the most difficult times through the pandemic and getting us out to the other side. So thank you for the tremendous work. And I think that as was mentioned, I think I'd like to thank our CAO who started us through this process to put this corporation together. He's done tremendous work, and all of staff. But ultimately, I think that everyone sitting at the board has done tremendous work. They've continued to do things in a positive manner, realizing that not only do they represent the Aurora Economic Development Corporation, but they also represent the town. And they've represented the town in a very respectful and dignified manner, and they've done it in such a positive way. And I think we're all excited about the growth and what we look forward to in the coming years as we continue to grow. And as has been mentioned, as we continue to bring in, new residents, new business owners, and as we start to turn over and we'll see new ideas and new thoughts come in, and we continue that positive transition towards something great that this town is going to be moving forward to. So thank you, Tim. Thank you to all the board. So I guess we'll still see you have around for 2 years. So you're not going anywhere. We're going to keep putting you to work. So thank you very much. Council, with that, I am going to, Tim, did you want to say something? Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to add I omitted to speak to the CAO and his role in starting this. He made the mistake of giving me his private number. And I don't think he'll ever do that again because I've used it and abused it, and he's been a tremendous resource to me personally and the board. And to Wendy's point about Lisa, we have a wonderful staff already with economic development. Lisa is just a gem, and she's going to make a difference. So the relationship works out tremendously well. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Well said. Council, I'll call the vote. Councilor Gardner?
Yes, thank you.
That carries. Confirming bylaw. Someone like to move that? Councilor Kim, Councilor Gallo, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Motion to adjourn, special meeting. Councilor Gallo, Councilor Gilliland, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Council, we're just going to take 5 minutes before we start regular council.